Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Circle and Salve Women. For today, I'm going to talk about my reflection beyond expectation of any good received. It's interesting because I think to myself, the innocence of a child, and I feel like my servitude is really toward the children, my children and other children that I am assigned to, as I feel every day that a child comes into my life, the moment that I'm given it, I feel that it is really an honor to put in what I am, to put in and whatever comes out of me at the time that I'm given with them. And it's interesting because I feel like they don't realize, my own children and the students that have come across in my life, that they have given me so much more of life to learn in addition to what they have probably felt that I was giving them. And so I look back and I think to myself, growing up and really going through that maturation and understanding how life can be just a bunch of gimme, 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 because we feel that the more we have, the more people notice. Everyone goes through a situation in life where you start to think that perhaps if, someone else has something, then I should have it too, because why wouldn't I be just as worthy of having it, and why wouldn't it be where others can take note of the things that I have received as well? And unfortunately, we start to identify ourselves with how important we are based off of the things that we are receiving. And I always think to myself, as a child though, did we ever feel that way? Did we go around thinking to ourselves, look, I have more than you? At what point did we really innately actually even feel that way, or was it something that was taught to us? And I'd like to think that calendars sometimes really have gotten us to be situated in a mindset of, oh my goodness, here comes a certain event in the calendar, and now we must play along and really make sure that we have this somewhat of a task to do, and then sometimes a feeling of, well, you know what? Others are going to acknowledge this, and perhaps then I am going to have to let people know, and we're going to have to exchange what we did during this time that we were supposed to be celebratory of this event. And so, growing up, it's interesting because as a child, my papa always believed in not just giving any gifts. And that would have been very disheartening if we went to school and then shared it with everyone else as to what we didn't get, which happened. But at home, when we got to tell jokes and we got to share moments together, it didn't seem so bad. It was always when you had to return to school and hear what everybody else ended up getting and what everybody else was excited about. And I look back now and I think to myself, you know what, there are others in my shoes as well, because they sat there quietly and then they didn't say anything either. But it was always like, the ones that were sharing all the many things that they received, that just kind of cut the heart, because then you didn't have anything to reciprocate, in conversation of, oh, this is what I received and so forth. And so you just remain quiet and listen to everybody else's joy. And, it's interesting because I think things that we go through in life, we tend to then just go, enough is enough, or that this is not something that I'm going to continue to have for the rest of my life, where I'm feeling somewhat less fortunate or, neglected emotionally and in so many ways. And then you start to put it on people. For instance, your partner, where you start to think, what, it's now his job or her job to make this happen for me, where I will no longer feel incomplete in these situations. And so I realize when I look back it started off, at school, because you're starting to see people exchange gifts. And as you got older, you wanted to partake in that so that you could get something back. It was this mentality, if I give something, I'm going to get something in return. And so here I am by high school time, where I'm thinking to myself, okay, middle school, or back then junior high, you're getting things from people. And then you start to situate yourself in that mentality of, okay, I'm going to continue this in high school. And I know that there's going to be people giving me things, and people are going to acknowledge me for the things that I'm receiving. And, the more roses you get, the more gifts that you receive, people from a distance will take note of how special you are. And I always go back to now, again, growing up in maturation, where as a child, it was just things that were simple. If you received a new toy, something to play with, didn't even have to be brand new, you were just ecstatic, the joy in your eyes, or just to get a warm hold after something that may have upset you. I see it in children. Of course, I don't remember that, because, who remembers little things like that as a child? But I see it with my own children, when you got to hold them when they were upset about something, or you just got to comfort them. Those are priceless moments. And I see that with my students when they look upset. And even though you're rushing down, this just happened this week, where I'm like trying to get into the staff lounge, and I was going to, get my hot water and my cold water. And it was interesting, because here comes a student, and I knew that the student was highly upset. And it was, something that I was thinking to myself, this student probably puts themselves in another situation that got them, to have to face some consequence. But I didn't want the student to think that I acknowledged them, and then I was just going to walk away from this look of, please just take a moment to just ask me how I'm doing. That look. And so I said, how's everything? You okay? And of course, then they express their latest discontent, and all you could do was give them that time. And I could see just by saying, okay, I'm sorry that happened. Hopefully you'll take some time to just relax and let go and have a better day. I knew that from experience, when people take the time to even just say that, it just takes away, it pulls you away from heaviness, and you feel like now you've taken a little bit off of you to have someone else carry. And it was just one of those moments where you just go, okay, that was enough that I was able to give. And I'm thankful that I took the time to do so. And I think with children, it's just those little things. And it's interesting to me, because the power of being humbled when you get to this age where you're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, I just need you to acknowledge, this day, because you have seen growing up, my mom and papa, these bitterness that would grow from just moments of forgetfulness. Papa was so cool and collect about it. And, being the fifth child, I really think that I realize now, having 5 children of my own, and having put my husband in situations that way, and I shared with you in my latest reflection, where, our first Valentine, I was very hurt and, just quiet. And then eventually, obviously, giving out a little bit of pouting, I'm sure some whining of how, disappointed I was without having to vocalize it or verbalize it, the fact that he had forgotten it was Valentine's Day. And yet we were struggling college students. But all I wanted was, to selfishly be acknowledged with something. And I also mentioned, though, that had I been probably given, the flower and the little tiny stuffed animal that he had stepped out quickly to find, I'm sure it's a little bit even more on Valentine's Day, to get me in, come back and give me a hug and a kiss to show that he appreciated and loved me. It was interesting, because in my mind, it was such a punishment. It was the time like when Papa would come in and tell me, go ahead, hate me if you want, but I would never forgive myself if anything were to happen to you. Those are moments where you take a moment to reflect and realize you are just being so wrong right now. All those many times that he has done so many things for you, and yet here you are holding him to a calendar. And I realized, looking back, my mama did the same thing for my Papa. And, by the time that I was in high school or so, I remember would sometimes just whispering to him saying, hey, this is coming up. Today is the day. And, and so he would get a card or something, but it was more of like just appeasing the moment. And it never this sense of, I felt like satisfaction and joy in either side, because now I look back and I think to myself, of all the things that my husband has gotten me, I selfishly always have in the back of my head going, oh, I could have done more. And so why do they even try? We put our loved ones in the position to be challenged, or we challenge them to show how much they truly appreciate and love us. And yet it's like a no-win situation. And now I understand why my papa and my husband become so calm and collect when all of these calendar marks, is what I call them, start to arrive, because it's essentially a no-win situation where sometimes they get it right and still you're out there the next day getting something in addition to what you received. Or, after a while you start to go, oh gosh, it would have been really nice if I got this along with it. And then it's like, when you were a child, you never got anything. And so at what point did that grow in you, where you felt like competitively, perhaps, you ended up having to ask for more or expect more? And so I think to myself that love is very humbling, because it really starts to cut you when you realize that you have put a lot of pressure on the ones that you love, and that you have put them in a situation where they felt like they didn't win either way. Because as soon as they give you something, a token of their love, and just an acknowledgement for just who you are, I know that essentially I have had many times where I've looked at something and said thank you. Sometimes we forget to say thank you. The more you receive, it's almost as if all of a sudden, I guess I'm not very good at it, and maybe I'm not alone in this, I hope, where we don't always know how to appreciate it either way. Whether we get something that we truly wanted, or we get something that wasn't exactly what we wanted, the sense of appreciation is not like the eyes of a child when they just got a toy that they could, be immersed in and totally be engulfed in the moment, or, the full day of playing with a new toy, or just getting a hug and holding them for so long, and, and they're just sitting there sucking on their thumb and being content. As we grow older, it's like this insatiable feeling of, what more could you show to appreciate me? And you grow up, and it only took a time for me to be almost half a century old to really understand that, my goodness, I really have to think about how I am conveying my gratitude, because essentially after a while, I feel like, as many things as my husband has given me, he truly has been this perfect partner from the beginning. And when I say perfect, we talk about excellence, because, there's not this 100% of the person. Even there are moments when you go, you are truly perfect for me, because when I think to myself, it's that perfection is that completion of helping you to find your greatest best, pushing you to your highest limits so that you can then extract all of your greatness. And there are those that, can do that. And when I look at my partner, it's like, if you would just give me everything and tell me I'm always right. And not that I say this to him, but I realize now, growing up, and perhaps I have, hopefully in more than one way or another. But, it's interesting, because we need to say, you have helped me to really humble my ego, and also find my true strength in just finding peace and comfort and contentment, and just being light, with life and in the light of things, not always trying to find darkness in anything. That partnership truly has you looking at it from a way to say to yourself, what are you complaining about? What are you so upset about? Are you just looking for something to go, you still didn't do it? You still didn't get 100%? It's like a test that will never, ever receive that 100%. And so I think to myself, there are that there are those moments where you go, enough is enough. And you really have to say to yourself, you know, how do you identify love? And if you haven't identified it yet, why put the pressure on someone to define it for you? Why is it that you're in still search for that perfect love when you yourself do not even know how to define what that perfect love is for you? You know, it's like there's this effort all the time till you take away that energy, you drain that energy of the try and the effort. And I had enough sensibility to go, if I continue to do this, if I continue to put so much effort in pointing out all the many times that my husband has missed a mark, then it will just all of a sudden create this feeling of, I will never be enough. And I realized that that partnership has to feed each other the understanding that, you know what, it is because of this calendar that I anticipated you would fulfill the need of what nationally it has been exposed to all to do. And yet here you are on all the days that never had anything on the calendar, and you were able to run your fingers through my hair. You were able to massage my neck or my shoulders when I was tense. You know, you were able to just massage my feet while you were talking to me. Those are things that are not on the calendar. And I think to myself, is it because there are some people that go, I would rather buy you, you know, a dozen of roses than to do those things for you? Everybody shows their love differently. And I have to put myself into that account of understanding it in the same way that I hope my husband, my partner, you know, has taken into light of how I am and how I express my love for him. And so hopefully you have as well. And if you're not there yet, if you're getting there, trust me, we all are. And it's just really important to know that in the eyes of a child, it's the little things, you know, that are actually big. It's those priceless moments where the comfort in the heart means most, and those are the most memorable. So, in the words of my mother, God bless us all. May we continue to grow and grow and grow until all these flowers bloom, that we can really take into account of the garden that we've created, and that we have pulled out the weeds because sometimes we put it in ourselves. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening.